Hello everyone, this is the first video in a series getting started with Builderius layouts. In this video we are going to cover centering your content. This means centering your content with built-in tools, but also how to add this in some more custom ways, how to control the site width globally and locally, and how to work with all that. So to start easily, you have some pre-built elements in Builderius that will center things for you automatically. This is section element and the container element. When you add a section element to the page, it will automatically also add a container element. Like this, there is going to be a section, and inside of it, there's going to be a div with a container class. This will do multiple things for you. Section element will have a padding. It's going to be a global padding value for your site. It's going to always be set to full width, the section element, so that you can change background colors in a proper way. It's not going to have any margins, so when you add the next section, there's not going to be any gap between them. And it's going to have the inner container added. On the container element, it's going to set the width of the content. It's going to be centered instantly. It can be locally modified to be full width, wide, or narrow. And it will not have any padding added to it. This is the element with the class, and then the variables that set those different values. All of this can be done purely through UI. There is no need to know any code to do this. So let's get going. I will delete this section now and start from a blank slate. When you open any template, this is what you see. You see a header component, a footer component, and the main element inside. Main element is what you want to use as the main wrapper of all your content in 99% of cases. So let's do exactly that. Next, in most cases, you just want to add a section. Once you do that, you will get a section element and a div with a container class within it. Then let's add some content within the container to see how it looks. I will hold my Shift key so that I can add multiple elements directly within the container. Heading, paragraph, image. Let's also add some image to the image element. This one's probably okay. Let's use some reasonable size and insert. Okay, so now we have our basic setup. We have our section. It sets the padding. We have a container. It sets the max width. And it centers itself. So let's check how it looks on different breakpoints. So we are now seeing that it never touches the edge. And if we remove the sidebars, it remains centered. So this is the first part. This is how it works by default. So let's now override this for this one specific case. So nowhere else. We're still leaving all the defaults intact. But let's just change this one. When container is selected and the content element is active, you will have three options here. The default is wide. So if you click wide, it's going to stay the same. But if you click narrow, it's going to be more narrow. Or if you click full width and remove sidebars, it's going to expand to fill the entire available space. Notice footer and header, who also have a container inside, did not change. This is a local change and it applies only to this element. Okay? So next, how do we make a global change? For that, we should go to CSS variables. CSS variables are what we use for global styling changes. It's a native CSS way to do such things. And it's a bit different than other builders, but it's really convenient and easy to do. So once you're in the CSS variables, scroll down to container element, or if you cannot find it, just search for it. And it's going to open this element with all of the items inside. Bear in mind, if your search is something else, like full, then you're going to see just one element in the container because that's the only one that has this name. So just a brief mention so you know this. Okay, so these are the elements that power those buttons that say width full, width narrow, or width wide. They have such values here, and they can all be modified. So let's say, for instance, we want our maximum size, or the wide option, set to 960. Just change it here and save, and it's going to change. Because we are now editing global variables, you can now notice that every element on the site that has a container element, container class on it, or that is a container element, because the only thing that makes something a container element is having a container class, changed. So this is the first thing. I'll return it back to what it was. I can also confirm with the Enter key, like I did now. Second, this is the default value for every container element. It is now mapped to the wide version. This doesn't have to be the case though. So you can also do this with the min. So it's this one. And then it's going to be like this. It's also, of course, not what we want, for sure. So maybe narrow is more realistic. And this is maybe if you have some blog and you want majority of your site to be narrow. This would still be overridden, but this would be the default. And finally, maybe you want full to be your default, in which case everything on the site, including the footer and header here, will be full width by default. Again, it's going to be overridable on the local level. So let's go to max, because for me, this is what I want. Okay, so what is it that makes an element a container? Let's go back to elements. Let's click on the container and see that it has a class of container. This class has those width values applied to it, and it can turn any element into a container. So let's create a custom element that will not be a section, but will act exactly like a section with different markup. Select the main element, and let's add an article. Article by default has 0 styles added to it. Let's turn it into a pseudo section, let it act like a section. So to do that, we also need to add a div, which also doesn't have any styles to it. And let's add some elements. So holding Shift and the image. This time, let's use another image. And let's use also a more reasonable size. We will notice it is filling everything. So how do we do it? So article is like a section. It needs to have a padding and be full width. So let's go here and use a class called outer wrapper. This has exactly the same styles like a section. And then on the div, let's add a container. And voila, our item is centered. It looks exactly like the section, but the markup is completely different. Check here, it's article and not the section. Why do sections have no margins? So that we can color everything properly. So selecting this section here, I can choose a nice orange. Then going to article, unselecting the class, I can go to green, and removing the sidebars show that they are filling all the available space, and there is no gaps between them, but our content is properly centered. Okay, so this is all about centering content in Builderius. Thank you and see you in the next one.